Breaking alert, graves leave evidence, and the smoke is finally trailing home. Chosen one, this isn't random, it's justice in motion. They mocked you, staged a storyline, tried to bury your name under their performance, yet what they forgot is that fire burns fast, but smoke lingers. And now that smoke has a destination. Eyes are watching. Questions are being asked. Doors that once swung wide for your ex are starting to creak and close. This isn't drama. This is the echo that follows betrayal. You are not average. Your silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy. While they curated a victim mask, you chose stillness, healed quietly, and let heaven keep the receipts. Every lie left a fingerprint. Every smear left a trail. When someone tries to torch what is pure, what is protected, the universe corrects with precision. That pressure lifting off your chest, that's not revenge, it's release. That strange sense that something is moving behind the scenes, that's confirmation. Let's walk this out together. If your spirit knows this is your word, drop 777 inches the comments to seal it. Follow the channel so you don't miss what unfolds next. And thank you deeply to everyone fueling this mission through shares, prayers, and super thanks. Your support is oil for the lamp, keeping this light visible for other chosen ones finding their way home. Stay close, because next I'll break down the quiet chain reaction. Your betrayal triggered, the evidence trails, the pattern repeats, and the moment masks slip, plus how to protect your peace while the truth does its work. Before we go deeper, ask yourself with honesty, now that justice is moving, will you spend your strength reliving the wound, or step forward into the elevation their betrayal accidentally prepared you for? God's chosen ones, remember the betrayal? Authorities are looking into your ex. Chapter 1. They set the trap. Now they're caught in it. For a long time, you, the one marked by divine gift and supernatural perception, walked through betrayal with quiet dignity. You saw their deception unfold like a cruel performance, yet you chose stillness when others would have screamed. Those who mocked you thought they'd won. They believed they'd escaped divine consequence. But the sacred laws that govern balance do not forget. Like Psalm 37:13 reminds us, the Lord laughs at the wicked, for he knows their day is coming. The very game they played against you has now become their own undoing. They thought you were weak because you loved deeply. They studied your tears as if they were tactics to exploit. Yet what they failed to see is that love, when it comes from the chosen, is a form of prophecy. Every wound you endured became a seed of justice waiting to bloom. And now, justice has arrived, dressed not in emotion, but in authority. You see, professionals, cold, methodical, trained in discernment, are tracing every footprint your ex tried to hide. The same analytical precision they once used to dissect your heart has turned upon them like a mirror forged by divine hands. Have you noticed how truth always has perfect timing? It may move slowly, but when it arrives, it strikes like thunder. You once whispered prayers through sleepless nights, uncertain if God heard you. But remember Proverbs 21:15. When justice is done, it brings joy to the righteous but terror to evildoers. That's what's happening now. Every deleted message, every lie sealed behind charm, every manipulation veiled in a smile they're surfacing. What once felt like chaos is now divine order revealing itself. Their facade, polished and practiced, is cracking under the heat of scrutiny, much like wax melting before the altar flame. And oh, the irony how it mirrors the tragic downfall of Haman in the book of Esther, who built gallows for another but ended up hanging upon them himself. Your ex too believed they were untouchable, a puppeteer tugging your strings. But when the hand of heaven shifts the stage, the puppeteer becomes the puppet. Forces greater than their ego now hold those strings, forces trained not in affection, but in revelation. Their whispers of manipulation have become echoes in corridors of investigation. This moment, chosen one, carries both poetic and cosmic rhythm. It's like Beethoven's Symphony No. 7, rising, relentless, inevitable. Each revelation strikes a note of consequence. Each discovery adds harmony to divine justice's composition. Perhaps that's why C.S. Lewis once wrote, "You can't go against the grain of the universe and not get splinters." They tried to walk against the grain of truth, and now they bleed from the friction. Have you ever noticed how a forest heals after a fire? The flames that destroy also clear space for new life. In the same way, their betrayal cleared the soil of your life, so that faith could take root again. Isaiah 61:3 speaks of this transformation, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes. You, the chosen one, are now wearing that crown. Meanwhile, those who mocked your faith are choking on the smoke of their own deceit. In one of Caravaggio's lesser-known works, The Taking of Christ, Judas's kiss glows faintly under the torchlight, a beauty tainted by betrayal. That painting captures what your ex lived, the illusion of control collapsing under the weight of divine exposure. Betrayal is always dramatic when it's painted by God's own hand, don't you think? Your supernatural perception was never a curse, it was preparation. Like a seasoned architect studying stress points in a collapsing cathedral, you learned where false foundations lie. Their downfall teaches that every lie is a crack in the spiritual blueprint, and sooner or later, gravity, both moral and divine, will pull it all down. You might wonder, why now? Because God's timing is not delayed, it's deliberate. When He acts, it is both justice and mercy intertwined. Romans 12:19 assures, "Vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord." So now, as the walls close in on your betrayer, you stand free, refined, not ruined. And as I reflect, I've learned this: divine justice is never about revenge, it's about restoration. The pain that nearly broke you became the altar where God rebuilt your strength. Perhaps you, too, have witnessed this sacred reversal in your own life. If so, share your story below. Let others see how divine balance always returns to its rightful course. Chapter 2. Their lies just became evidence. Now they're choking on the truth. You, the one chosen and anointed with a divine gift and supernatural perception, have been vindicated not by noise, but by light. For so long, your honesty was labeled hysteria, your pain mistaken for bitterness, your voice silenced under the weight of manipulation. But heaven keeps records, and as it is written in Luke 8:17, "For there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be known or brought out into the open." What they once dismissed as drama has now become documentation, cold, undeniable, archived truth that breathes louder than their denial. You remember those nights when you wept into silence, replaying every scene of betrayal in your mind, wondering if you were the problem. You weren't. You were the evidence of divine timing itself. While they plotted with deceit, you recorded with faith. You didn't just survive, you archived. Every word they used to slander you is now being dissected by people trained not in gossip, but in discernment. And now their lies are suffocating them, their rehearsed charm collapsing under the pressure of truth. It reminds one of Psalm 7:15. "Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. The hole they make will come back on them." You might feel conflicted should you pity them or feel peace, because when truth rises, it doesn't ask permission. It comes like a storm breaking through glass. Have you noticed how storms wash the world clean, yet leave behind only what's strong enough to endure? That's what's happening now. You, the chosen one, stand like a mountain weathered but immovable. They, however, built their kingdom from sand, and the tide of divine revelation is reclaiming every grain. Their fall isn't sudden, it's structural, like a cathedral designed on false geometry. One tremor of truth, and every ornate lie begins to crumble. Their downfall mirrors the story of Ananias and Sapphira from Acts 5 to 1:11, who lied to the Holy Spirit and fell by their own deceit. They too thought their performance could fool divine perception. But truth is an architect of divine precision. It builds slowly, yet destroys instantly. Just as marble cracks under hidden fault lines, so does deception fracture under the gaze of divine justice. And perhaps the irony cuts deepest in silence. Those who once called you unstable now tremble before the evidence they can't spin. You were never dramatic, you were prophetic. When you warned others, they mocked. When you cried, they rolled their eyes. But those same words are now being quoted in investigations, time-stamped, analyzed. Truth is now procedural, not personal, and that terrifies them. Your silence has become their storm. The same calm that once made you appear powerless is now your greatest weapon. In the words of Street Augustine, the truth is like a lion. You don't have to defend it. Let it loose, it will defend itself. And that's what's happening. You released your truth to the divine, and now it roars. Have you ever seen how a snake sheds its skin? It writhes, uncomfortable, trying to escape what no longer fits. That's your ex now, shedding the illusions they once wore so proudly. And every layer they lose reveals more of what they've tried to hide. Their denials sound rehearsed, their apologies hollow, because the evidence doesn't blink. As John 8:32 declares, "Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." But not all truths are gentle. Some arrive like fire. The composer Henry Purcell once said that in music, dissonance must resolve into harmony. The same rule applies here. The chaos of their lies is resolving into the harmony of justice. Every screenshot, every testimony, every pattern is aligning into a divine symphony that sings your vindication. And yes, maybe you've wondered, will they ever confess? Will they ever admit the harm they caused? Probably not. People whose egos feed on deception rarely repent before exposure. Think of King Saul, whose jealousy made him chase David, the chosen one, until his own obsession became his undoing. Your ex, too, is trapped in a pattern of self-sabotage, blind to the fact that divine justice doesn't need a confession, it only needs alignment. So, how do you move forward now that the truth has done the fighting for you? You heal, you rebuild, you let patience continue to be your protest. The universe is not punishing them, it's purifying you. Remember Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him. Your silence, your endurance, your restraint, these have become the instruments of your elevation. You've reached the point where revenge has no value. Your lesson now is legacy. The truth has already spoken. Now your task is to live above it. Hold your head high, for your story has turned from testimony to triumph. And if your heart still trembles, whisper this: you didn't win because they lost. You won because you refused to become like them. And maybe this is your moment to encourage others who are still in the shadows of their own betrayal. Share your story. Someone needs to know that silence doesn't mean surrender, that truth, like light, always finds a crack to enter. Chapter 3. They played with fire, now they're screaming in the flames. You, the one marked by divine gift and sharpened through supernatural perception, were never truly their victim. You were their mirror. Every lie they told about you was a spark thrown carelessly into the wind, and now that same wind, divine, relentless, is carrying the fire back toward their own fortress. The match they struck to burn you became the torch of their exposure. They believed that if they scorched your reputation, they could extinguish your light. But your light wasn't ordinary, it was forged in holy flame. Isaiah 43:2 reminds us, "When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned, the flames shall not consume you." You are living proof of that promise. They wanted the world to see your ashes, not your resurrection. Yet, here, you stand tempered, luminous, untouched by their smoke. While they fanned their lies with ego and pride, you learned how to breathe through the heat, letting pain become purification. Have you ever noticed how a blacksmith tempers steel? He plunges it into fire, not to destroy it, but to strengthen its core. That's what God was doing with you. Every attack, every humiliation, every betrayal was divine metallurgy. He was shaping endurance in your spirit. And now, while they cough on the smoke of their own deceit, you carry the gleam of refinement. You see, fire doesn't ask permission to expose weakness, it simply reveals what's authentic. The false metals melt, the genuine endure. Your ex thought the flames would be your ending, but as Proverbs 17:3 says, "The crucible for silver and the furnace for gold, but the Lord tests the heart." And your heart, chosen one, has passed that test. In a small village in northern Spain, a humble potter named Elias once said, "When I lose a pot to fire, I know it wasn't meant to hold water." He wasn't a preacher or philosopher, just a man who understood creation. His words mirror your truth. What couldn't withstand the fire wasn't meant for you. Perhaps betrayal was never your curse. It was the kiln that separated the fragile from the faithful. And now, as you watch their illusion crumble, remember how you once felt powerless. The same ones who laughed at your tears are now running from their own shadows. The universe isn't cruel, it's precise. What looks like chaos is divine geometry in motion. The walls closing in on them aren't random, they're the architecture of consequence. Have you ever pondered how a collapsing building first groans before it falls? The sounds of cracking stone are the echoes of hidden fault lines, just like their lives, now fracturing under truth. Their fall is not dramatic for the sake of spectacle, it's poetic in its inevitability. They built an empire of manipulation, layering deceit like bricks without mortar. And now, justice has entered that structure with the weight of divine resonance. It's physics at a spiritual frequency. Every lie carries energy, and energy always seeks equilibrium. The vibrations of their deceit have finally reached the resonance point where everything unstable must collapse. The Bible tells us in Galatians 6-7, "Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows." That's the law echoing through their downfall, the universe collecting what's due. They called it bad luck. It's not luck, it's law. They called it timing. It's not timing, it's truth. And if you listen closely, there's a strange beauty to divine justice. It never shouts, it just balances. You no longer need to defend yourself. Reality itself has become your advocate. I once heard a violinist, a woman named Miriam, who performed in an empty church after surviving betrayal, whisper between songs, "Fire can't destroy, sound it refines it." She played through her pain, every note trembling like forgiveness. You too are that music, now resonating through what was meant to silence you. As I reflect, I've learned something haunting yet holy. Those who try to destroy you often end up revealing who you truly are. You don't rise from betrayal by demanding revenge. You rise by becoming proof that grace outlasts malice. Have you ever wondered if maybe the fire wasn't sent to punish you, but to prepare you for rooms where only the refined can stand? Your story is no longer about survival, it's about sacred transformation. Your wounds have become windows through which divine light passes freely. And for those who are still walking through their own flames, this is your call to faith. Keep walking. Don't curse the fire. Trust that what burns away was never meant to remain. So, chosen one, raise your head. You are not the ashes they are. Drop a word of testimony. Share your fire-born wisdom, because someone out there needs to hear how you survived what was meant to end you. Chapter 4. They declared war, not love, and now they're losing it. You, the chosen one, endowed with a divine gift and supernatural perception, were never just in a relationship. You were in a battlefield disguised as affection. What they called love was never holy, it was strategy. They didn't simply leave your side, They infiltrated your peace like a thief in the night, as John 10:10 warns. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. But here you stand, not destroyed, but awakened. The emotional ambush they designed to shatter you has now become the very proof of your spiritual resilience. They smiled with devotion while mapping your downfall, turning your kindness into a weapon, your empathy into ammunition. It was psychological warfare wrapped in tender words. You welcomed them into your heart, but they treated it like occupied territory. Every act of deceit, every rumor whispered, every mockery of your pain was another arrow shot in silence. And yet how could they understand that the soul of a chosen one cannot be conquered? You were not naive, you were merciful. Mercy was your weapon, even when they mistook it for weakness. Your endurance confounded them. Like David facing Goliath, you entered the battlefield unarmed in appearance, but covered by the armor of faith. Psalm 91:4 says, "He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge." That's what sustained you while they laughed. They mistook your stillness for surrender, not realizing that divine justice moves like a slow tide, silent at first, then unstoppable. You might wonder, how could someone declare war against love itself? Because darkness always fears what it cannot control, and you, chosen one, embody light. Your supernatural perception exposed their motives long before they could confess them. While they mocked your intuition, heaven was already drafting their consequence. Proverbs 26:27 says, "Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them." Now those stones of deceit are rolling home. In the art world, the painter George Rouault once said, "A tree against the sky possesses the same silence as the mountains." He painted suffering faces with divine light shining through cracks, because holiness is revealed most clearly through pain. That's you. You've become living art. Your wounds are brushstrokes, your survival the masterpiece. Every scar carries pigment from divine fire. You see, what they mistook for your weakness was spiritual architecture. You were being built layer by layer, tested like stone in a cathedral's arch. Each betrayal carved precision into your purpose. That's why Romans 8:31 declares, "If God is for us, who can be against us?" The very structure of your spirit was reinforced by their attacks, and now it stands unshaken. And now karma, that universal echo of divine order, is ringing. It doesn't scream. It vibrates at a frequency their conscience cannot escape. You may ask, why now? Because divine justice waits until the soul's arrogance matures enough to collapse under its own weight. The same ego that mocked your healing is now choking on exposure. Isn't it extraordinary how truth waits for pride to reach its peak before striking it down? There's a lesson I've learned walking this same narrow road. Love is not a battlefield, it's a covenant. But when a heart declares war under the disguise of love, it fights not against you, but against the laws of heaven. And those laws always win. I once met a florist named Naya, who told me she learned this truth through heartbreak. "When I watered the wrong seed," she said, "it didn't grow, it just drowned." Simple words, yet profound. You watered deceit with sincerity, and now the soil has spoken, it only sustains truth. As the great composer Pergolesi once wrote in his Stabat Mater, "Through her heart, pierced by sorrow, love still reigns." That melody echoes your soul wounded, yet reigning. You don't have to shout for justice anymore. The music of your endurance speaks louder than revenge. So, chosen one, this is not just their downfall, it's your divine vindication. You are not their casualty, you are their consequence. And maybe, as you watch this spiritual war unfold, you'll see the beauty in restraint, the holiness in holding peace when chaos demands reaction. If you've ever faced a silent war like this, share your story. Someone out there needs your proof that no weapon formed against the chosen can prosper. Chapter 5. They fed on control, now they're starving for it. You, the chosen one, blessed with a divine gift and supernatural perception, were never meant to be anyone's puppet. You were designed to be a reflection of God's authority on earth. They mistook your compassion for compliance, your silence for submission, your grace for weakness. What they called love was never covenant, it was captivity. 2 Corinthians 3:17 says, "Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom." You carried that freedom within you, and that's why they feared you. They didn't love you. They worshipped the illusion of control they thought they had over you. Every guilt trip they sent your way, every manipulation cloaked in affection, was an attempt to drain your divine frequency and replace it with their chaos. They thrived on your self-doubt the way parasites feed on light, but what they didn't understand is that you were never their source, you were their mirror. When they made you question your reflection, they were actually staring into the fractures of their own soul. Have you ever noticed how insecure souls crave control the way drowning men crave air? It's desperation masquerading as power. They built a kingdom out of your compassion, brick by emotional brick. Yet, every structure raised by deceit eventually folds under divine physics. It's the law of spiritual gravity. What rises through manipulation will collapse through truth. Job 34:11 reminds us, "For the work of a man will he render to him, and cause every man to find according to his ways." And now they're finding what they built: control turning to chaos, ego turning to ash. They thought they were powerful because they could make you cry. But those tears, they were baptisms. Each one fell like holy water, cleansing you of their grip. While they were feeding on your peace, you were unknowingly fasting for revelation. The withdrawal they now suffer isn't punishment, it's prophecy fulfilled. Proverbs 29:23 declares, "A man's pride shall bring him low, but honor shall uphold the humble in spirit." Their pride was their crown, and now it's too heavy to wear. You were never meant to be controlled. You were meant to reign. That's why your freedom unsettles them. It exposes the emptiness behind their dominance. They mistook fear for leadership, but fear never builds, it only binds. Like a spider spinning its web, they trapped themselves in their own pattern. Control became their venom, and now they're poisoned by the very power they tried to hoard. This story echoes the fall of King Nebuchadnezzar in Daniel 4, a ruler who glorified himself until heaven stripped away his sanity. The same spirit of arrogance drives manipulators. They exalt themselves until divine truth humbles them in public. Your ex, your oppressor, your false friend, they're tasting that same madness now, hungry for control in a world where their influence no longer exists. I once met a retired sailor named Amari who told me, "You can't command the sea by shouting at the waves." He'd learned that control is an illusion when faced with forces greater than himself. That wisdom fits here perfectly, because what they're realizing now is that divine order cannot be manipulated. You were never theirs to shape, you were God's to protect. Have you ever watched a falcon try to cage the wind? That's what they attempted, capture what was meant to move freely. But wind never stays in cages. It finds cracks, slips through bars, and returns as a storm. And now, chosen one, that very storm is justice. Galatians 6-9 comforts you in this moment. "Let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." The harvest of peace is already sprouting in your life, even as they choke on the dust of their own downfall. They thought dominance would fulfill them, but control is a hunger that never ends. Manipulators don't crave people, they crave worship. Yet when their worshippers awaken, they lose oxygen. That's why they rage, that's why they crumble. Power built on deceit has no structure once truth enters the room. The fire they used to blind you is now burning through their illusions, and they can't handle the light of their exposure. So what now, chosen one? You rebuild, but not with vengeance. You rise with vision. You've learned the difference between influence and intimidation, between power and peace. Control seeks to own, love seeks to uplift, and you, refined by fire, will no longer confuse the two. The next time someone tries to dominate your light, remember this: your boundaries are sacred architecture. Protect them as you would the gates of a temple. And if your heart still trembles from the memories, breathe. Healing isn't forgetting, it's reclaiming. You were never too sensitive, you were spiritually attuned. You saw what others couldn't because your perception wasn't human, it was holy. Chapter 6. They tried to escape the fallout, but karma has their address. You, the chosen one carrying a divine gift and a supernatural perception, already knew that no one outruns the frequency of their own energy. You felt it long before evidence appeared, didn't you? The unease in your spirit wasn't paranoia, it was prophecy. Every action, every word, every betrayal vibrates through creation like a ripple in still water, and those ripples always return to the source. Galatians 6-7 affirms this unshakable law. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. Whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. They thought they could walk away clean, leaving you wounded and questioning your worth, yet divine order keeps perfect records. The messages they deleted still hum in the spiritual ether. The lies they whispered still echo in unseen realms. Luke 12:3 says, "What you have said in the dark will be heard in the daylight," and that daylight has arrived. They're restless now, not from guilt, but from exposure. The same energy they cast out in malice is ricocheting back with precision. It's not magic, it's mathematics of the soul. Cause and effect is not theory, it's justice. Imagine how they laughed while throwing stones from their glass house, convinced that transparency was for fools. Now, every shard cuts their own feet. That's not coincidence, that's consequence. Have you ever noticed how the echo of wrongdoing always returns louder than the original sound? It's acoustic justice, the physics of the unseen. You, the chosen one, don't have to swing back. The universe itself is calibrated to avenge truth. Psalm 9:16 declares, "The Lord is known by his acts of justice. The wicked are ensnared by the work of their hands." And now they live ensnared in that maze of their own making, walls closing in, every corridor whispering their past. They can't sleep, can't eat, can't silence the static of their own conscience. That's what spiritual feedback feels like. What once amplified pride now amplifies fear. You may ask, do they regret it now? Yes, but not from repentance, from panic. They regret the loss of image, not the harm they caused. They fear karma not because it's mysterious, but because it's exact. Truth has coordinates, and divine justice never misdelivers. There's something strangely poetic about this season, isn't there? You were once the one pacing at night, asking God if he saw what they did. And now Romans 12:19 answers softly, "Vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord." That repayment doesn't always come as lightning, it often comes as silence that unnerves the guilty. Their peace has been repossessed, their laughter foreclosed, their confidence confiscated by truth itself. When I met a quiet street vendor named Min in Hanoi, he told me, "When you spill oil into the river, you can't catch it again, it follows the current home." He wasn't a theologian, just a man who understood cause and return. His words mirror the truth. Every dark act carries its own address label, and sooner or later it finds its sender. The Bible gives us a vivid cautionary tale through Haman, the official who plotted to destroy Mordecai in Esther 7:10. The gallows he built for another became his own downfall. That's your ex now, constructing traps, unaware they were measuring their own rope. They're not haunted by ghosts, they're haunted by geometry, the divine architecture of consequence. Nature itself mirrors this truth. When a serpent sheds skin, it slithers forward, leaving the old shell behind, but if it's trapped in cold, the skin hardens, strangling the creature instead. That's where your betrayer stands, trapped in their own discarded facade, gasping for air as their lies congeal. Have you seen how divine justice never rushes, but always arrives precisely when arrogance peaks? In this, there's a chilling yet liberating lesson. You don't need revenge. Your elevation is the verdict. The higher your frequency, the more their deceit cannot breathe around you. As Isaiah 54:17 proclaims, "No weapon forged against you shall prosper." Their downfall is not your celebration, it's your confirmation. So, chosen one, breathe easy. You don't have to chase what's already chasing them. Instead, rise higher in peace, because peace is the final proof of power. The law of energy, the divine resonance of justice, always finishes the story it begins. If you've ever felt this reversal happen in your life, share it below. Let your testimony be another reminder that God's justice doesn't miss mail, it simply waits for the right delivery hour. Chapter 7. They called you too much. Now they can't handle the fallout. You, the chosen one, endowed with a divine gift and supernatural perception, were never too emotional, too intense, or too sensitive. You were spiritually awake in a world that glorifies numbness. The fire that burned within you wasn't excess, it was discernment, a sacred radar for deceit. What you felt wasn't melodrama, it was revelation. Psalm 34:18 says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." That ache in your chest wasn't weakness. It was the Holy Spirit alerting you that something dark had entered your atmosphere. They mocked your pain, called it exaggeration, whispered that you were overreacting. But you were never wrong, you were prophetic. While they rolled their eyes at your tears, heaven was recording every one of them as evidence. You see, your silence was never submission, it was sacred observation. You watched as they tried to repaint your truth, but divine justice holds the master copy. Your stillness was not passivity, it was the waiting posture of someone protected by unseen armies. How often have you been told you're too much, when in truth you were the only one feeling enough to see clearly? The universe, or rather God's law of spiritual reciprocity, has perfect memory. Luke 8:17 reminds us, "For there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed." Now that hidden pain you carried is being unveiled as divine proof. Their laughter echoes differently now because guilt distorts joy. They thought your kindness was naivete, but kindness from a chosen one carries frequency. It lingers, it exposes, it reflects truth like light refracting through glass. You were the mirror they feared to face. A contemporary painter named Sofia Almare once said in an interview, "The colors that make others uncomfortable are the ones closest to truth." She was speaking about art, but her words describe your life. Your love had too many shades for people who only painted in gray. They mistook your vivid soul for chaos because their eyes couldn't handle color. Remember when they laughed at your empathy? That laughter was the nervous reaction of someone terrified by genuine light. Empathy unsettles manipulators because it sees too much. You weren't fragile, you were forgiving. And that forgiveness has now become the instrument of their conviction. Romans 12:20 says, "If your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head." Your compassion was those coals. They're feeling the heat now, every sleepless night, every racing heartbeat, every dream they can't escape. You might ask, how does peace become someone's punishment? Because true peace vibrates at a frequency their chaos can't endure. They tried to steal your calm, but now they're choking on it. Their own guilt resonates like an echo chamber, amplifying every lie they told about you. Proverbs 26-27 confirms this. Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. And now they're falling, trapped in the very narrative they built to bury you. This same lesson once unfolded in the life of Saul, who hunted David only to be tormented by his own jealousy. Saul's torment wasn't from David, it was from the dissonance within himself. Likewise, your enemies are haunted not by your presence, but by the absence of peace they forfeited when they betrayed you. I once met a violin maker in Florence, an old man named Pietro, who told me something profound. The string that breaks most easily is the one stretched too tight. His words carry spiritual truth. Your ex's obsession with control snapped under the pressure of their own deceit. They stretched lies over every inch of their life, and now the music has stopped. Have you ever noticed how certain flowers close their petals at night? Not to hide, but to protect what's sacred until morning. That's what your withdrawal was, sacred self-preservation. You weren't running, you were resting until the light returned. And here's the divine irony. The peace they mocked is now their punishment, and your sensitivity, the very thing they ridiculed, is your crown. Matthew 5-8 says, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." You saw truth because your heart stayed pure through corruption. You didn't need revenge, you became revelation. From this, I've learned something holy yet haunting. People often despise what exposes their wounds. They call you too much because your presence reminds them of what they've refused to heal. Your emotions were never the problem, their denial was. If you've ever been shamed for feeling deeply, share your story, because the world needs more souls who refuse to go numb. Chapter 8. They replaced you with chaos. Now they're drowning in regret. You, the chosen one, blessed with a divine gift and supernatural perception, were not just a presence in their life. You were the spiritual equilibrium holding their fragmented world together. They didn't lose a lover. They lost the only source of divine frequency that ever calmed the noise inside their soul. They mistook your peace for boredom, your silence for emptiness, and your compassion for weakness. But peace is not passive. It is the highest vibration of power. Isaiah 26:3 says, "You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in you." You were that steadfast presence, the quiet gravity that anchored their chaos. They believed leaving you would mean freedom, but freedom without alignment is simply exile. They sprinted toward what they thought was liberation, yet found only mirrors reflecting their own brokenness. Have you ever noticed how people who crave attention the most are often running from themselves? That's the tragedy. They escaped your arms, only to find themselves trapped within their own unrest. Proverbs 14:30 declares, "A heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones." Their envy of your stillness has now turned into the sickness of their own soul. On the surface, they seem unbothered, posting smiles, chasing distractions, performing happiness. But you, chosen one, can sense the static behind their show. That's your supernatural perception. You feel the tremor beneath their calm. They replaced your serenity with noise, and now every silence screams. The nights stretch longer for them, not because of time, but because absence has a sound. Have you ever felt the quiet that exposes everything? That's the silence they now drown in. There's a haunting irony here. They tried to replace peace with chaos, yet chaos doesn't love its host. It devours it. It's like releasing a bird into a hurricane and calling it free. They mistook motion for healing, but healing only happens in stillness. Psalm 37:8-9 reminds us, "Refrain from anger and turn from wrath. Do not fret, it leads only to evil. For those who are evil will be destroyed, but those who hope in the Lord will inherit the land." You hoped, they fled, and now they're wandering through deserts of their own making. A teacher named Clara, a retired nurse from Lisbon, once told her class, "When people leave peace for excitement, they always come back wounded." Her words ring true here. They're bleeding now, not from the loss of you, but from the wounds of their own chase. They mistook chaos for passion because they were addicted to adrenaline, not love. Addiction always disguises itself as freedom until it collapses. Their story mirrors that of King Saul, again anointed once, but consumed by jealousy, losing his peace the moment he tried to control what God never gave him ownership over. The same spirit follows those who try to dominate the chosen. They lose themselves in pursuit of what they cannot contain. John 14:27 whispers God's promise. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. That's the peace they rejected, the peace they will now spend years trying to recreate through counterfeits. In nature, this truth is everywhere. When coral reefs are destroyed, the ocean looks open and vast, but life underneath dies silently. That's their reality. They cleared you out, thinking space would mean freedom, yet all they found was spiritual extinction. Their soul ecosystems are collapsing, one breath at a time. And now they run from city to city, face to face, distraction to distraction, haunted by the ghost of your calm. They didn't realize that peace, once lost, echoes. They lie awake, staring at ceilings that feel lower every night, realizing that the emptiness they once accused you of carrying was actually their own reflection. But here's the grace in it all, chosen one. You were never meant to chase after those who cannot value what's sacred. Their chaos was your classroom. Their betrayal, your refinement. As Romans 8:28 reminds us, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him. So take that divine gift of perception and guard it well. Peace is your inheritance, not your punishment. I've learned something from walking through the same valley. Sometimes God removes you not to protect you from them, but to protect the peace inside you from being corrupted. So breathe, bless them from afar. You didn't lose them, they lost alignment. And one day, when they finally understand what they traded away, they'll look for the calm they mocked and realize it was you. If you've ever been that calm in someone else's storm, share it. Someone needs to know that being too peaceful was never a flaw, it was evidence of divine presence. Chapter 9. They traded a diamond for dust. Now regret is all they breathe. You, the chosen one, set apart by divine gift and sharpened through supernatural perception, were never just a person to them. You were the alignment their soul didn't understand, but still needed. They mistook your quiet strength for ordinary affection, never realizing that they were standing beside something sacred. Proverbs 31:10 asks, "Who can find a virtuous one? For her worth is far above rubies." They had that worth in their hands and traded it for glitter that fades in the first rain. They thought love was a marketplace, that hearts could be swapped like trinkets, that sparkle meant value. They chased imitation light, forgetting that true diamonds are formed in pressure and patience. You, the one who loved with heaven's patience, were replaced by those who only mirrored what looked like warmth. But glass can't hold fire. And now they live among fragments, empty conversations that echo, laughter that doesn't reach the eyes, company that feels like static. You were their signal, and now all they hear is noise. Their nights are hollow now. Every silence speaks your name. The universe, which once conspired to give them the gift of your presence, now replays the loss on a loop. Jeremiah 2:13 says, "My people have forsaken me, the spring of living water, and have dug their own cisterns, broken cisterns that cannot hold water." They left living water for illusions, and thirst has now become their constant companion. Have you ever noticed how regret sounds like breathing underwater? Slow, heavy, impossible to stop. That's their rhythm now. They traded peace for performance, truth for temptation. And now the stage is empty, the applause has faded, and all they can hear is the echo of what once held them steady. Psalm 42:5 captures their torment perfectly. "Why, my soul, are you downcast? Why so disturbed within me?" They can't name the ache, but you can. You were the calm they keep chasing in strangers. There's a tragic symmetry in this. Like King Esau selling his birthright for a bowl of stew, Genesis 25-33, they surrendered eternity for appetite. The rush they felt wasn't freedom, it was the high of losing something holy. And now they're learning that thrill is a terrible substitute for peace. It burns fast, it ends cold. Their laughter has become mechanical, their mornings haunted by the weight of what's gone. Once, You were the still water that reflected their better self. They looked into your eyes and saw who they could be if only they'd stayed humble, but pride blinds before it destroys. The poet Rainer Maria Rilke once wrote, "The only journey is the one within." Yet they ran in every direction but inward. They sprinted through faces, distractions, shallow highs, all to escape the mirror you once held to their spirit. In a small town near Naples, a baker named Matteo once told me, "You don't know how much sweetness meant until the sugar's gone." He wasn't talking about desserts, he was talking about loss. That's what they taste now, every morning. Bitterness where grace once was. Their soul has developed a craving for the peace you provided, but they can't find the recipe again. You see, what they lost wasn't love alone, it was gravity. You were their grounding force in a world spinning too fast. John 15:5 reminds us, "Apart from me, you can do nothing." In rejecting the peace God placed in their path, they untethered themselves from divine order. They're drifting now, untied, unanchored, carried by the currents of consequence. Have you ever watched a kite snap from its string? It doesn't soar, it spirals. But here's the higher revelation for you, chosen one. God allowed them to lose you so they could face the weight of what they worshipped. You were never meant to stay where your worth was negotiated. Your presence was the light that revealed the cracks in their illusion. Don't mourn being replaced. Rejoice that your absence teaches what your presence could not. Romans 8:28 promises, "All things work together for good to those who love God. Even heartbreak becomes holy in His hands." And maybe, as you read this, a part of you still asks, will they ever realize what they threw away? They already have, but realization is not redemption. Some lessons must be lived, not learned. The consequence of losing someone sent by heaven is not punishment, it's awareness. They'll see you again, not as the one they lost, but as the one they can never reach. So, chosen one, don't dim your light for those who couldn't recognize its origin. You were never too much, you were the mirror of divine peace. Share your story if your spirit leads you. Someone out there needs to be reminded that losing peace for pleasure is the worst kind of poverty. Chapter 10. They broke the shield. Now they're getting hit from all sides. You, the chosen one endowed with divine gift and supernatural perception, were never their weakness. You were their spiritual armor, the unseen fortress that absorbed storms meant for them. Every prayer you whispered, every tear you shed, every silence you kept, it was intercession. You weren't just loving them, you were covering them. Psalm 91:4 says, "He will cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you will find refuge." They didn't understand that your peace was not passive, it was protection. The calm they mocked was the barrier between them and the chaos now swallowing them whole. They used to feel invincible when you were near, didn't they? Opportunities opened, blessings multiplied, storms seemed to pass around them, but that wasn't coincidence. That was your divine field, your energy acting as a shield. When they dishonored your presence, they dismantled the very force that preserved them. And now they're discovering the cost of disrespecting sacred alignment. Proverbs 18:10 reminds us, "The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous run into it and are safe." You carried that tower in spirit. You were the vessel through which heaven extended mercy to them. But mercy withdrawn always leaves a vacuum, and chaos rushes in to fill it. You were never their downfall, you were their delay from it. They thought your presence was ordinary, yet you were standing as the firewall between their choices and their consequences. The moment they severed the connection, the shield collapsed. And now, opportunities that once chased them slip away. Friendships fracture, deals dissolve, peace vanishes. It's not misfortune, it's mathematics of the soul. Every action creates energetic resonance, and betrayal carries the lowest frequency of all. The universe doesn't punish, it recalibrates. Galatians 6-7 confirms, "Whatever a man sows, that shall he also reap." Have you ever seen how a bird flies smoothly in formation until one breaks away, only to be torn apart by the wind? That's what's happening now. They stepped out of divine synchronization, and the turbulence is unrelenting. They laughed at your stillness, not realizing stillness was structure. They mistook your patience for inaction, when in truth it was the architecture of protection holding their world upright. Now, stripped of your covering, they stand under open skies, vulnerable to the storms they once mocked. Their life now resembles a house without a roof, in the rain, beautifully built, yet functionally unlivable. Isaiah 30:1 warns of those who carry out plans that are not mine, forming an alliance, but not by my spirit, heaping sin upon sin. They built alliances outside divine order, and now those roofs are caving in. You once shielded them from the emotional downpour, now they stand drenched in the storm of their own making. The painter Fra Angelico once said, "He who wishes to paint Christ must live with Christ." That truth applies to love too. He who wishes to hold a chosen one must dwell in alignment with divine integrity. They didn't live with your light, they only borrowed it. And borrowed light always dims when removed from its source. The irony burns deep. The calm they scorned has become the chaos they drown in. A story comes to mind of a fisherman named Elias from a small coastal town in Greece. He once told me, "When my net broke, I blamed the sea. Only later did I realize it was the anchor I neglected that tore it." His words mirror their reality. They blamed fate, timing, bad luck, never realizing it was the loss of their anchor, you, that tore everything apart. Have you noticed how divine justice often moves like weather, quietly forming, then suddenly unstoppable? What they're enduring now isn't random, it's a system balancing itself. Job 34:11 declares, "For the work of a man will he render to him, and cause every man to find according to his ways." The storm they face is not punishment, it's correction. The atmosphere reclaiming equilibrium. And here's what I've learned. Being the shield for others is a sacred burden, but it's not your lifetime assignment. God sometimes lets the shield break, so both sides can see the truth. One learns gratitude, the other learns release. You, chosen one, are not meant to regret protecting them. You were fulfilling a divine role. Now your task is to rest and rebuild your own armor, not theirs. They called your boundaries cold, but those boundaries were gates of heaven. They will soon realize that no counterfeit connection can replicate your energy. The peace you brought was not emotional, it was elemental. It had frequency, resonance, divine geometry. You were never a person they had. You were a temple they should have honored. If you've ever been someone's shield only to be shattered by their betrayal, tell your story. Someone needs to hear that losing you is not the universe being cruel, it's the universe correcting imbalance. Your absence doesn't bring their curse, it simply removes your cover. Chapter 11. They went silent, but guilt screams louder than words. You, the chosen one, endowed with a divine gift and supernatural perception, always felt the echo long before it returned. Their silence wasn't peace, it was panic disguised as composure. You could sense it, couldn't you? The sudden quiet wasn't closure, it was cover. They ghosted you not because they won, but because they couldn't face what your light revealed. Proverbs 28:1 says, "The wicked flee though no one pursues, but the righteous are as bold as a lion." They ran not from you, but from the mirror your presence became. They believed silence could erase guilt, that absence could rewrite memory. But divine energy doesn't vanish, it reverberates. Your connection wasn't casual, it was covenantal. They thought they could block your number and block the consequence. But the universe operates like a sacred algorithm, it never loses data. You, the chosen one, didn't just occupy space in their life, you occupied frequency. That's why your absence feels louder than any confrontation. Their insomnia isn't random, it's karma knocking in Morse code. You may have asked yourself once, Why didn't they say goodbye? Because people consumed by guilt mistake silence for control. Yet Luke 8:17 declares, "For there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed." Every unspoken word now chokes them in the quiet. They can't sleep because the truth hums through every crack in their peace. Their laughter is delayed, their smiles don't reach their eyes, and every still night reminds them that your discernment saw too much. They didn't ghost you, they exiled themselves from grace. Have you ever noticed how the forest reacts when a predator leaves? Birds return, light shifts, air moves freely again. That's your life now. Their silence cleared space for divine air to flow back into your world. Yet for them, the air has thickened. Each moment of stillness is a mirror, and guilt, like humidity, clings to the soul. Psalm 32:3 confesses, "When I kept silent, my bones wasted away through my groaning all day long." That's their body, now restless, aching, heavy, under the weight of unspoken truth. There's a peculiar kind of torment that comes when people try to mute what was holy. Silence becomes their punishment. Every quiet moment now plays back your words like whispers in their head. Guilt has no language, it speaks in symptoms. In their constant checking of social media, in the sudden tightening of their chest, in the way they overcompensate for peace they never earned. They didn't escape you, they've been possessed by their own avoidance. The irony is biblical. Like Cain, after he struck Abel, they wander with invisible marks. No one else may see them, but heaven does. The weight of their choice follows them, and like Genesis 4:12 says, "You will be a restless wanderer on the earth." Their restlessness is their revelation. They can't stop running because stillness has become unbearable. In art, the composer Arvo Pärt once described silence as the pause that speaks. He wrote music where quiet moments carried the most truth. That's divine irony. The very silence they weaponized has become the sound of their unraveling. It's the same rhythm now echoing through their sleepless nights, that haunting stillness that exposes what denial once concealed. And as you stand in your peace, you've learned the deepest truth of all. You don't have to chase closure when God is your witness. Romans 12:19 assures, "Vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord." Divine justice doesn't always roar, it whispers until the guilty break themselves. You no longer wait for an apology. Their insomnia is confession enough. A woman named Leona, a street violinist in Prague, once said during an interview, "When you stop playing in tune, the silence punishes your ears first." She wasn't speaking of music, but of conscience. That's their melody now, discordant, endless, unfixable. Their silence is no longer absence, it's evidence. You, chosen one, have already transcended that frequency. What once hurt now serves as proof of your spiritual elevation. Your peace doesn't need their words, it vibrates higher than their apologies could ever reach. So, if you ever find yourself haunted by memories of their disappearance, remember this: ghosts only linger where grace refuses to stay. And maybe that's the greater lesson here. Sometimes divine justice doesn't shout through thunder. It speaks softly through insomnia, through regret, through silence that suffocates the unrepentant. If you've ever been ghosted, share your story. You never lost them, they lost the only soul that could hear their truth without judgment. Chapter 12. They disrespected the gift. Now they're paying the full price. You, the chosen one, marked by divine gift and supernatural perception, were not sent into their life to entertain their ego. You were sent to elevate their existence. But they treated your presence like a privilege that could be renewed at will. They mistook your forgiveness for forgetfulness, your patience for permission, your loyalty for dependence. Proverbs 9:8 says, "Do not rebuke mockers, or they will hate you. Rebuke the wise, and they will love you." They were given the chance to grow beside you, yet they mocked the very wisdom that could have saved them. And now, what was once grace has turned into consequence. Your silence wasn't surrender, it was divine strategy. They thought your absence meant defeat, not realizing that when a chosen one withdraws, heaven reorganizes. Your energy wasn't passive, it was a stabilizing frequency, a supernatural resonance that held their chaos together. Once you left, the architecture of their blessings collapsed. Psalm 37-28 reminds us, "The Lord loves the just and will not forsake his faithful ones." You were that channel of justice, and when you stepped away, the imbalance revealed itself. What used to flow easily for them now feels like moving through quicksand. Every door that once opened smoothly now resists. That's not bad luck, it's divine rebalancing. They thought crossing your boundaries came without consequence, but boundaries drawn by the righteous are sacred lines, not suggestions. Have you ever noticed how the ocean pulls back before a wave crashes? That's what your withdrawal was, the calm before their reckoning. You weren't weak, you were water in divine form, gentle enough to cleanse, powerful enough to drown the arrogance that disrespected you. Ecclesiastes 10:1 says, "As dead flies cause the ointment of the apothecary to send forth a stinking savour, so doth a little folly to him that is in reputation for wisdom and honour." Their small acts of disrespect have now spoiled what was once blessed. In the physical world, when a bridge loses its support beam, it doesn't collapse instantly, it trembles first. You were that unseen support, the spiritual engineer maintaining their emotional infrastructure. When they disrespected you, they removed the cornerstone of their own stability. Isaiah 28-16 describes it perfectly. "Behold, I lay in Zion a tested stone, a precious cornerstone for a sure foundation." You were that cornerstone in their story, tested and true, and now their foundation is cracking beneath their own choices. There's a pattern here that divine law never fails to repeat. When sacred energy is violated, equilibrium demands restitution. Galatians 6-9 reassures, "Let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not." You didn't faint, you simply stopped feeding what refused to grow. They thought your love was endless supply. But divine energy doesn't operate on demand, it moves through alignment. And now, as they stumble through confusion and loss, they're beginning to taste the absence of what they once took for granted. An old carpenter named Miguel, from a small town in Mexico, once said, "When you disrespect the tools that built your home, don't cry when the walls crumble." His words echo this truth. They disrespected the gift, and the spiritual architecture that once protected them now caves in on itself. They wander through their own ruins, searching for shortcuts to peace, but there are none. You were the divine equation that made their life balance, and without you, every variable now collapses. In art, Caravaggio's The Denial of St. Peter captures this spiritual law with haunting precision. Peter's guilt, illuminated by divine light, reveals that truth cannot be silenced by denial. That same illumination is falling on them now. Their falsehoods are exposed by the light they tried to extinguish in you. The very energy they dismissed is now judging them. Have you ever wondered why guilt echoes louder in the dark? Because silence amplifies memory, and absence turns lessons into hauntings. Their sleepless nights are your vindication. You didn't curse them, you simply stepped out of God's way and allowed divine law to speak for you. But here's the revelation for you, chosen one. Their downfall was never your revenge, it was your release. You don't need to celebrate their struggle, your peace is celebration enough. Let their lessons play out. You've transcended their frequency. You are not the broken heart, you are the healed foundation. As Romans 8:28 declares, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him." Your withdrawal wasn't loss, it was alignment with divine justice. Now, if you've ever been the gift that someone disrespected, share that story. Someone out there needs to be reminded that silence is not weakness, it's God's way of preparing the echo of truth. Chapter 13. They chose a knockoff. Now they're craving the real thing. You, the chosen one, set apart by a divine gift, and armed with supernatural perception were never something that could be copied. You were essence, not imitation, frequency, not form. They thought replacing you would silence the void inside them, yet what they didn't realize was that you were not a habit they had encountered, holy energy in human skin. James 1:17 says, "Every good and perfect gift is from above." They didn't lose a person, they forfeited a divine assignment. At first, the imitation felt convincing. They were blinded by the surface, new faces, new words, new attention. But shallow rivers can't nourish deep roots. The new person may echo your voice, may wear the fragrance you once loved, may say the right things, but your presence was oxygen to their soul, and now they're suffocating on artificial air. Every night, they rehearse smiles that never reach the heart. You were the rare painting. They settled for the poster. The difference wasn't visible until the light hit, and now truth is the light. Luke 12:2 declares, "There is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known. The longer they stare, the more they see the cracks." You once carried them with the kind of patience that mirrored heaven's rhythm. You read their silence like scripture, spoke life where others demanded performance. But they traded divine depth for temporary thrill. Have you ever noticed how the counterfeit always fades faster under pressure? That's the law of energy. It cannot lie. The spiritual resonance you carried wasn't something they could mimic. It was something heaven installed. 1 Samuel 16:7 reminds us, "Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." What they now face is the collapse of what was never real to begin with. There's a scene in Michelangelo's The Creation of Adam, where the divine hand stretches toward humanity, almost touching. That's what your presence was, a living bridge between the divine and the damaged. But they stepped away, chasing reflections instead of reality. And now, the distance feels unbearable. They scroll through highlight reels, pretend they've moved on, yet the silence in their spirit betrays them. The copy can't carry the current. The voltage of your love was too high for something man-made. The psychologist, Dr. Evan Rosas, once said, "People don't miss you when you're gone. They miss themselves when they're with the wrong version of you." His words describe their agony perfectly. They're haunted not by your absence, but by the mirror you left behind. Every time they try to fill the void with distraction, the emptiness multiplies. Their fantasy was never sustainable because fantasies demand denial, and denial has an expiration date. Proverbs 14:12 says, "There is a way that seems right to a man, but in the end it leads to death." The death they face isn't physical, it's spiritual disconnection from what once made them whole. Their situation now is like a garden without rain, beautiful for a moment, but dying underneath. They try to water it with compliments, attention, noise, but only divine alignment brings true life. You were the rain, not the decor. And as they reach for something that resembles you, they realize what the poet Christina Rossetti once wrote. "Better by far you should forget and smile than that you should remember and be sad." Yet forgetting is impossible when the soul recognizes its loss. There's a deeper truth buried in this. When someone replaces a chosen one, they don't just lose love, they lose favor. Hosea 8-7 warns, "They sow the wind and reap the whirlwind." That's the season they're in now, the whirlwind of their own choices. What once felt like victory has become a spiritual drought. You were not the one who lost, you were the one who was released. You, chosen one, are not defined by their mistake. You are the original, the blueprint. No replica can carry your frequency because what you hold is not learned, it's bestowed. Like an instrument tuned by heaven, your energy vibrates on a level that counterfeits cannot sustain. Have you ever felt the peace that comes after you stop trying to prove your worth? That's where you stand now. Here's the lesson I've learned from witnessing this pattern. The divine never rushes to replace what's authentic. When you walk in purpose, God multiplies what was meant for you and exposes what was not. Don't chase validation from those who only see shadows. Your light was never meant to compete with imitations. Romans 8:28 affirms, "All things work together for good for those who love God." Their loss is your confirmation. If you've ever been replaced by someone pretending to be you, share your story. Someone out there needs to remember that heaven doesn't clone souls, it crafts originals. Your worth isn't measured by who keeps you, but by what breaks when you leave. Chapter 14. Your rise became their collapse, and now they're trapped in the shadow of what they lost. You, the chosen one, blessed with a divine gift and supernatural perception, were never buried. You were planted. What they thought was your ending was heaven's beginning. They mistook your silence for defeat, your stillness for surrender, your absence for extinction. But Job 14:7 reminds us, "At least there is hope for a tree. If it is cut down, it will sprout again, and its new shoots will not fail." That's you, the one they tried to uproot, now rising with roots deeper than pain and branches wider than the wounds they caused. You don't just grow, you transcend. Every betrayal became soil rich with revelation. Every tear watered your becoming. While they celebrated your supposed downfall, the universe was rearranging the light to nourish your rebirth. Psalm 126:5 whispers, "Those who sow with tears will reap with songs of joy." And now your song is louder than their excuses. You are living proof that divine design turns burial into blooming. Have you noticed how people who once broke you now tremble at your peace? That's the echo of guilt meeting grace. They can't speak your name because your transformation convicts them. Your glow is their mirror, reflecting everything they tried to suppress. Their silence isn't strength, it's shame in disguise. Isaiah 60:1 commands, "Arise, shine, for your light has come." And you, chosen one, did exactly that. You rose quietly, magnificently, until your very existence became a sermon on resilience. Your rise didn't just expose their lies, it dismantled their illusion of control. They tried to play the author of your downfall, but God rewrote the ending in ink they can't erase. You were the seed they mocked, but now your canopy blocks their sunlight. Like the cedar of Lebanon mentioned in Psalm 92:12, "The righteous will flourish like the palm tree, they will grow like a cedar in Lebanon." You now tower over the very landscape that once rejected you. Their karma unfolds slowly, poetically, like the shadow following light, it cannot be escaped. Their laughter has become hollow, their connections shallow, their peace fractured. Have you ever wondered why their eyes look duller now? Because exposure drains falsehood. They're living inside the consequences they wrote for you. What they once called your weakness, your compassion, your faith, your patience, was the architecture of their protection. Now, stripped of your energy, they stumble through chaos they can't control. The story of Joseph mirrors yours. His brothers sold him, buried his name in deceit. But Genesis 50:20 reveals the truth. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good. Just as Joseph rose to feed the very ones who betrayed him, your rise now nourishes nations of witnesses who once doubted your worth. Isn't it extraordinary how your pain became prophecy? In the realm of nature, volcanoes teach this truth best. Beneath pressure and destruction, magma becomes light and new land forms. That's divine alchemy, the same force that transformed your suffering into sacred ground. They thought they were burning your world down, yet they were igniting your core. An ordinary man named Aaron, a sculptor from Florence, once said, "Every break in marble teaches me where the masterpiece hides." His words echo your transformation perfectly. You were the marble they cracked, unaware that divine design uses fractures as blueprints. Now, every scar is symmetry, every mark meaning. You became their greatest lesson, that betrayal cannot kill destiny, and humiliation cannot drown purpose. Their downfall isn't loud, it's internal erosion. Like iron rusting underwater, it consumes them quietly. Their smiles fade faster now, their achievements feel weightless, because success without integrity is just noise. You, however, have stepped into frequency alignment, a realm where revenge is obsolete and excellence is testimony. You are no longer chasing closure, you are closure. The gates they shut on you have become the doors heaven opened for your expansion. You've entered what Romans 8:18 calls the glory that will be revealed in us. This glory doesn't shout, it emanates. It hums in your stillness, resonates in your peace, vibrates in your silence. And yes, they scroll through your rise in disbelief, haunted by a question they'll never admit. How did the one we buried grow this tall? The answer is simple: what's divine cannot die. You were wired for resurrection. John 11:25 confirms it. I am the resurrection and the life. And every time they see you thrive, they face that truth again. So breathe, chosen one. The garden they left you in has become a kingdom. Their shade cannot block your sunlight anymore. It only defines how bright you shine. If you've ever been buried under betrayal, speak your truth. Someone needs to know that pain, when sanctified, becomes power, and that no human hand can halt what heaven ordains. Chapter 15. They ruined their own name, trying to bury yours. Now the world is watching. You, the chosen one, marked with a divine gift and guided by supernatural perception, were never meant to be hidden. When they tried to silence you, heaven amplified your frequency. They believed character assassination would erase your influence, but truth resonates on a wavelength that cannot be muted. Luke 8:17 declares, "For nothing is hidden that will not be disclosed, nor is anything secret that will not become known and come to light." Their lies became the very stage on which your authenticity shines. At first, they thought slander was power. They whispered half-truths into crowded rooms, hoping the echo would outlive the evidence. But lies decay faster than integrity. Like unstable atoms, falsehoods disintegrate under the heat of scrutiny. You stood still, silent, letting divine physics do its work, because God himself is the architect of truth's gravity. The heavier the lie, the faster it falls. Proverbs 12:19 assures, "Truthful lips endure forever, but a lying tongue lasts only a moment." Now their fabrications crumble, while your silence stands like marble, immovable and unshaken. They poisoned wells they thought you drank from, forgetting you had your own river. Every rumor they spread became a reflection, and in every reflection, people began to see their distortion. Have you noticed how the same ones who mocked your calm now live in chaos? How those who spoke your name in falsehood now hear their own name whispered in doubt? The universe doesn't punish, it mirrors. When they hurled accusations, they were revealing their own confession. You weren't just their target, you were their mirror. And mirrors, as 1 Corinthians 13:12 says, "Now we see through a glass, darkly, but then face to face." They saw their own darkness in your light and mistook the exposure for threat. That's why they twisted the story to feel taller in a world that was showing them their own smallness. But here's the spiritual law they ignored. Every lie vibrates at a lower frequency, and when exposed to divine resonance, it self-destructs. A woman named Clara, a florist from Lisbon, once said, "You can't perfume rot." She was right. They tried to cover decay with charm, deceit with eloquence, manipulation with smiles. But perfume fades, stench lingers. Now, everywhere they go, the air carries the residue of their own doing. Former allies keep their distance, new acquaintances hesitate. The very audience they used to manipulate has turned into silent judges. And your name? It rises again, clean, restored by the same silence they mocked. Their downfall isn't theatrical, it's architectural. Like a building built on sand, every lie weakens the foundation until collapse becomes inevitable. Matthew 7:26-7 describes it clearly. Everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down and the house fell with a great crash. You, meanwhile, were built on rock integrity, grace, and divine order. That's why your structure still stands, while theirs disintegrates in slow motion. They wanted to bury your name, but you were never meant to live underground. You are light, and light cannot be covered. It escapes through every crack. John 1-5 says, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." Your silence became illumination, your endurance revelation. They mistook your stillness for weakness, not knowing that the stillness of heaven is strategic, not passive. In the quiet between their gossip and your rise, the world began to see patterns, the inconsistencies, the half-truths, the emotional debris they left behind. Have you felt that moment when truth begins to vibrate through the air, like a storm gathering before rain? That's the universe recalibrating frequencies. Their falsehoods are static, your truth is sound. And divine sound never dies, it echoes. When we observe from the lens of spiritual psychology, their behavior was projection. They saw in you what they feared in themselves: purity, conviction, purpose. Instead of healing, they deflected. Instead of growing, they blamed. But energy doesn't lie, and what they gave out has returned to them magnified. Galatians 6-7 affirms, "Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows." Is night. Their punishment isn't a storm from above. It's the silence within, the loss of peace, the anxiety that follows them into every room, the discomfort in their own reflection. They once fed on attention, now attention exposes them. They crave validation, but find only emptiness. Like Icarus, who flew too close to the sun, they believed their lies could outshine divine light. And as the wax of deceit melts, they fall into the gravity of consequence. You, chosen one, do not need to defend yourself anymore. The laws of heaven are your advocate. The more they scratch at your image, the more light seeps through the cracks. Every attempt to smear your name only reveals the fingerprints of their guilt. Have you ever noticed how time always sides with truth? Time isn't neutral. It's sacred architecture built by God to separate gold from dust. And here's what I've learned from this divine unfolding. The truth never rushes. It arrives exactly when exposure will teach the most. You, who stayed silent when accused, were not weak, you were wise. Silence is the highest form of warfare when your hands are clean. Now, I invite you, if you've ever been misrepresented, share your story. Let others see how light always returns to its source. You are proof that lies may travel quickly, but truth, divine truth, always arrives to stay. Their entire identity was built on illusion, on charm, manipulation, and control. And you broke the cycle. You, the chosen one, anointed with a divine gift and awakened by supernatural perception, became the interruption that illusion feared. When you walked away, you didn't just exit a relationship, you dismantled an empire built on deceit. John 8:32 says, "Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." That truth moved through you like a storm through stagnant air, breaking patterns that had enslaved generations before you. Your silence was a weapon they didn't understand. They thrived on reaction, on the electricity of control, and when you unplugged, their entire power grid failed. They built narratives out of shadows, convinced that their charm could rewrite reality. But light exposes what charisma conceals. And the moment your energy detached, their illusion began to collapse under its own weight. Have you noticed how counterfeit confidence trembles in the presence of peace? That's because peace doesn't negotiate, it reveals. Their downfall was psychological before it became visible. Proverbs 10:9 reminds, "Whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but whoever takes crooked paths will be found out." Their crookedness is now public record. The stories they spun to control perception are now the very webs tightening around them. They once claimed your silence was weakness, but that silence became an echo chamber that amplified their lies until they exposed themselves. When you withdrew, you became what Psalm 46:10 describes, "Be still and know that I am God." Your stillness wasn't surrender, it was divine alignment. While they scrambled to maintain an illusion, heaven built your foundation in truth. Their manipulation used to move rooms, but now every sentence they speak carries static, every smile feels rehearsed. People sense it. You don't have to defend yourself anymore, because the vibration of authenticity always silences counterfeit frequency. There's a story about a composer named Matteo Grange, a reclusive musician from Prague who once said, "I realized the orchestra didn't need my baton, it needed silence to hear itself." His words mirror your journey. You stepped back, and in doing so, exposed the discord in their song. Without your harmony, their melody fell apart. The very rhythm of their influence broke because you were the one keeping tempo. And this is where poetic justice blooms. The world they built was made of mirrors, and mirrors only reflect light, they cannot create it. Matthew 7:18 says, "A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot bear good fruit." Now, their fruit rots in public view. Conversations pause when their name arises. Eyes shift, smiles falter. You can feel the tension, can't you? The energy that once belonged to manipulation now trembles under truth's spotlight. They tried to convince others that you were unstable, yet you became the symbol of composure. They said you were too emotional, yet your calm now unnerves them. They thought they were puppeteers, but their strings were always visible to anyone with spiritual vision. Have you ever noticed how liars eventually exhaust themselves? Truth doesn't chase, it waits. The irony is divine. In trying to make the world doubt you, they made the world doubt themselves. Luke 12:3 affirms, "What you have said in the dark will be heard in the daylight." Every whispered rumor, every distorted confession, they've all resurfaced, reordered, rebalanced. Their fall isn't sudden, it's surgical, as if the universe itself is dissecting their deceit layer by layer. Meanwhile, you've ascended into a realm beyond reach. Your glow is not revenge, it's revelation. Every ounce of pain you endured was alchemy, transforming wounds into wisdom. Like light refracted through crystal, your essence multiplies rather than breaks. In physics, resonance amplifies only when two frequencies align, and yours no longer aligns with deception. That's why they can't touch you anymore. Your energy hums at a pitch their chaos can't register. You are walking evidence of Romans 8:28. All things work together for good for those who love God. Their betrayal became your blueprint, their gossip, your elevation. You didn't retaliate, you evolved. And in doing so, you became untouchable. There's a woman named Elise Tran, a small cafe owner in Vietnam, who once said, "I stopped explaining myself when I realized peace has better marketing than panic." That is your story. Your peace is now the headline, your composure is your testimony. And their downfall? It's not your victory, it's their education. Here's what I've learned watching this pattern repeat through lifetimes. Manipulation may win moments, but truth always owns time. You, chosen one, have proven that energy doesn't need applause to be powerful. It simply needs alignment. If your story has mirrored this journey, if you've ever watched someone's illusion collapse under the quiet weight of your peace, share it. Your voice is the continuation of divine justice unfolding. Chosen one, your story has never been about revenge. It has always been about revelation. The very pain that tried to destroy you became the soil that birthed your purpose. What they meant for your downfall became your divine platform. Genesis 50:20 says it best. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good. Every betrayal, every misjudgment, every whisper behind your back was quietly preparing you for this moment of divine emergence. You didn't lose, you transformed. And that transformation is the loudest victory heaven could give you. You were never meant to fight the way the world fights. Your silence was never weakness, it was sacred strategy. When you chose stillness over spite, you aligned with the supernatural perception that sets you apart. The world shouted, but you prayed. The world lied, but you healed. And now your peace preaches louder than any defense could. Like Psalm 23:5 says, "He prepares a table before me in the presence of my enemies." You are sitting at that table now, eating the fruits of endurance, while those who doubted you watch in silence. And if guilt, regret, or bitterness still tries to whisper, remember this truth: light never apologizes for shining. You don't owe explanations to anyone who chose blindness over belief. You were called to rise, not to prove. The very people who questioned your worth are now watching the evidence of your calling unfold. You didn't need to clear your name, God cleared your path. Your divine gift was never meant for their validation, it was meant for awakening. You were the disruption heaven sent to expose manipulation, to break patterns, and to restore balance where there was deceit. That's why you were misunderstood, that's why you were attacked, but that's also why you were chosen. Isaiah 61:7 declares, "Instead of shame, you will receive a double portion." And that's exactly what's happening now. Your restoration won't be subtle, it will be sacred. The lesson here, the one I've learned watching story after story unfold, is this: peace is the real proof of power. The higher your alignment, the quieter your defense becomes. The universe doesn't reward revenge, it rewards resilience. You became the evidence of divine law in motion, proof that what's built on truth doesn't need to shout, it simply stands. So, if this message has reached your spirit today, take a moment to reflect and to connect. Comment 777 if you feel the shift in your season. Share this message with someone who's been fighting in silence. Subscribe to the channel if you know you were guided here not by chance, but by divine timing. Every like, every share, every word of encouragement helps us carry this message of light to others walking the same path. And to those who've supported through super thanks, or simply through watching, praying, or showing up from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Your presence here is not small. You are part of a divine movement, a community of chosen ones, awakening to who they truly are. May God bless your home, your health, and your heart. May every silent prayer you've whispered in pain return as answered grace. May your nights be peaceful, your mornings purposeful, and your steps divinely ordered. You are covered, protected, and guided by the one who called you. So, walk boldly, walk blessed, and never forget your rise is not over, it's just beginning.